Economics paper 2, a question paper from June 2023. So we're going to look at the question paper from the KwaZulu-Natal province. So moving on the instructions and information, the instruction number 1 reads answer 3 questions as follows. Section A is compulsory. We have section B, which reads answer any 2 questions from this section. So we are supposed to answer only 2 questions, and then section C, you answer 1 of the 2 questions. So this is what we have. So on the first question that we have, which is our 1.1.1, the quantity of goods or services that consumers are willing and able to buy at a specific price and time is called. So we've got demand, we've got supply, market, and exchange. So that the quantity response that we have is demand. Remember, demand is measured from the point of view of the consumers. So we have demand. Then 1.1.2, a value of inputs owned by entrepreneur and used in the production process is referred to as dash costs. So we have value, which means this is going to be expressed in monetary terms. So you would see that according to responses that we have, the correct one that we have is explicit. Explicit costs, and remember, explicit costs is defined as cost that involves spending money. So we have 1.1.3. The degree of satisfaction of needs and wants that a consumer gets from using a product is called. So remember, this is satisfaction that is gained, and we know that this is related to our utility. So we have utility D as the correct response. Then we move on to the next part, which is 1.1.4, which is a market structure that consists of few sellers is known as we know that this is an oligopoly. An oligopoly is associated with a few firms. Then we have C as our correct response. Then we go to 1.1.5. The amount by which total cost increases when one extra product is produced is called, this is marginal cost. So we have marginal cost C as the correct response. So moving on to the next question that we have, which is 1.1.6. The study of the behavior of individuals and firms in making decisions is referred to as, remember, this is individuals and firms, which describes the microeconomics. So we have microeconomics, which is opposed to macro. When we are talking about macroeconomics, it's from the whole economy point of view. Then 1.1.7, the market where means of production are traded is called. We have got financial market, goods market, we have got stock market, and we have got factor market. So the greatest one that we have is factor market. And remember, the factors are the means of production. So we go to 1.1.8. The difference between a business total revenue and explicit cost is called dash profit. We see that this describes the accounting profit. Remember, when I talk about the accounting profit, and basically this is net income earned after subtracting all dollar costs from total revenue. So that's exactly the description that we have according to our question 8. Then move on to the second part of our question, which is all the matching words, whereby the first term that we have is supply, and we look for a explanation that is matching supply according to our other section. So if you go to D, it says the total quantity of goods or services that is available to consumers at a specific price and time. So we have D as the correct response. Then 1.2.2 variable cost, you know that variable cost changes with the level of output. As the level of output increases, variable costs also proportionally increase, whereby we are saying at zero output, we are going to have a no variable cost, which is also we are going to have zero variable cost. So according to responses that we have, I would say that if you go to E, cost that change according to changes in output, we have E as the correct response. Then our value, we gauge again what explanation do matches value according to our other section. So remember, our responses are going down. If you go to H, the amount of money that a person is willing to pay for a good or service is the value of that good. So we have got H as the correct response. Then the equilibrium point, we know that at the equilibrium, that's where we've got the intersection of the supply curve and demand curve, where demand is equal to supply. So basically, at that point, we try to see what explanation do matches that according to our other section. So we go to our responses that we have. So if you go to a condition where market supply and demand are equal at the same price level. So this is our equilibrium. So we have A. And then the short run, and we know that when I talk about the short run period, it denotes a period where at least one input is fixed. So according to that, let's see what do matches that explanation. Uh, that is our short run. So if you go to, let's try to see according to the responses that we have. So if you go to F, the period of production where only the variable factors of production can change. So that's F, which is our correct response. Then entrepreneurship, we know that entrepreneurship is the knowledge to use those factors of production to produce goods and services and make profit. So we have our explanations and try to see what to matches that. So if you go to B, the human factor of production that combines with other factors in order to start a business is the correct response, which is on B. Price taker, you do know that a price taker is a business that uses the price that has been determined by the forces of supply and demand. That is a price taker. So we try to see what do matches that explanation. If you go to I, an individual firm that only charges a price that is determined by the market. So we have I as the correct response. Then break-even point, we know that this is the point where we have got our total expenses equals to total revenue. In other words, that's a point where profit being made is zero. So we try to see again what explanation to matches that. So if you go to G, a condition where the company's total revenue is equal to the sum of total cost. So we have G as the correct response. So with that, we try to move on to the next section. According to our section A, we've got 1.3, which reads, give one term for each of the following descriptions. So we have got 1.3.1, which reads, a market structure with a large number of buyers and sellers. So we try to see which market structure is characterized by a large number of producers and sellers, whereby we have a perfect market is the correct response. So we are saying perfect market. So according to 1.3.2, the minimum earnings required to prevent the entrepreneur from leaving the business. Basically, this is the normal profit. So we are saying normal profit is the correct response. Then 1.3.3, the amount that a consumer pays for a product at the time of the transaction. So we have a nominal price as the correct response. And on the next description is the group of companies that produce similar goods and service in the market. So we have a group of companies obviously are doing the same activities and producing similar goods and services. We call it an industry. And on the next part, the optimal level of production where marginal revenue and marginal costs are equal. So the point where we have got marginal revenue equal to marginal cost is at the profit maximization point. So we are saying profit maximization. Then 1.3.6, the value of the best alternative that is given up when a decision is made is opportunity cost. So this is what we have in terms of our section A with 30 marks. So we'll move on to our question 2 according to our question paper. So our question 2 is on microeconomics. So it is 40 marks and requires you to spend on average 30 minutes. So our first question is name the following question, answer the following questions. Name and 2 examples of inferior goods. But we know that inferior goods, so these are goods which the demand of the product falls with increase in income of the consumer. We know that on normal goods, when income increases, demand is supposed to increase. But for inferior goods, we have the opposite, whereby we have got demand decreasing, while its income is increasing, depicting an inverse or a negative relationship between the two variables, and that is our demand and our income. So the question requires us to come up with two examples that we can give in terms of inferior goods. So we can talk about Kenros, we can talk about salt as the correct response. So we are saying salt, we are also talking about matches and Kenros as examples, but the question only requires two examples. Then we move on to the next part, whereby it reads, why is the demand for luxury products elastic? So obviously, it is elastic because it is sensitive to the factors that are affecting that demand. So it becomes elastic. So we try to see in terms of the explanation that we have, which says that the demand for luxury goods is elastic because it is sensitive to any price changes. So price change being a factor that is affecting demand. So we go to the next part of our question, which is study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So we are given a graph of imperfect markets, whereby it reads SA retailers by market share. So we are having a pie chart that we have there. So the first question is, which retailer is the largest number of customers? So according to the proportions that we have, you'd see that Pick n Pay has got the greatest proportion with 30%, and also ShopRite they've got the same 30%, 30%, which indicates them as the indicating the largest. So we have got Pick n Pay and ShopRite. That is according to our 2.2.1, whereby we are saying ShopRite, and also we have Pick n Pay. So moving on to the next question that we have, which is our question 2.2.2, provide the name of the imperfect market shown in the diagram above. So this is a market structure whereby we have got many retail outlets indicating that it's a monopolistic. Remember, in the monopolistic, we have got many firms that are operating, and also they are selling differentiated products, which is similar, which is the case that we have in terms of ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Spar, etc. They sell differentiated products, so that becomes a monopolistic competition. So this is the response that we have, whereby we are talking about a monopolistic competition. Then moving on to the next part, it reads, briefly describe the term market share. So market share obviously is the part of the market that is owned by an individual firm. So we try to see, it reads market share is the number of customers that one firm has access to in relation to other firms in the market. So that's the description that we have of market share. Then we'll move on to the next question, which reads, explain the disadvantage of incomplete information for consumers. Obviously, incomplete information is going to lead to a bad decision according to the consumer, because there is no sufficient information to make a decision. So let's see, according to what we have in our section, incomplete information may be a disadvantage for consumers because they can experience negative effects from using the product if they bought it without full information. That's the explanation that we have. Then on the next part, how does branding benefit sellers of homogeneous products? Obviously, brand in terms of branding is going to lead to loyalty, brand loyalty, whereby customers that are attached to that brand will have more returning back to the purchasing of that product. So basically, that becomes an advantage. So we have those advantages articulated in our answer section, whereby we are saying branding plays a significant role in developing customer loyalty. Where a consumer may choose one product over another, and also it assists firms in attracting customers and increasing their market share. So that is those are the benefits that we have. Then we'll see that this is the last question that we have on this part. Then we'll go to the next, whereby we have 2.3. Start the table below and answer the questions that follow. So you're given a table of revenue calculations. So you need to try to go through the table before attempting the questions that are beneath. So we have got revenue calculations. We column for quantity sold, price, TR, AR, and MR. So according to 2.3.1, identify the concept that refers to income from the table above. So what is the concept that is referring to income? So you would see that we have the term revenue that we have here, which is referring to income. Then we go to what does the abbreviation AR stands for? We know that AR stands for average revenue. So we can try to see what we have according to that, whereby we are saying our AR stands for revenue. So we are saying it stands for average revenue. So we've got average revenue, and then on the first part, 2.3.1, we've got answer as revenue. Then the next question is briefly describe the term market price, whereby saying market price is the price at which buyers and sellers trade the product as determined by market forces of demand and supply. Then the next question says explain the importance of the fifth unit sold in relation to total cost. So you'd see that if you refer back to our table, the fifth unit sold, we are having it here. And then the fifth unit sold, we are having marginal revenue equal to 0, which means the additional unit from the fourth to the fifth that has been added has resulted to no increase in total revenue. Remember, revenue is 60 and it remained 60 on the fifth unit. So basically, that's what we have. So we try to see explanation that we have according to that. So we are saying the fifth unit signals an end to an increase in total revenue as it produces marginal revenue of 0. So this is the explanation that we have. So next part is calculate the marginal revenue A above using information from the table, show all calculations. So we need to calculate A, of which we are having our A here. So A is the marginal revenue, but we know that the marginal revenue of consuming the six units, the additional is from the fifth to the sixth, whereby the additional unit that we have added resulted from a movement from the fifth unit to the sixth unit, which has resulted in the movement of total revenue from 60 to 54. So basically, we need to see the increase, the decrease that we have there, and that becomes the marginal that we have. So we have got 54, then we subtract our 60. And we're going to see that we're going to get a -6. So this is what we have according to our answer section, whereby we are saying on the formula of calculating marginal revenue, we are going to say our change in total revenue over change in quantity. So we have got change in total revenue over change in quantity, whereby we are saying in total revenue, we are saying 54 minus 60, which is indicated by 54 minus our 60. So that's what we have for that part. And then having that now, we also have our denominator is change in quantity, whereby we're saying the 60 unit minus the fifth unit to get the 1. And you see that in our numerator, 54 minus 60 will get to a -6. And with that, we get our final answer is a -6. So on the next question, it reads, discuss the factors that influence price elasticity of demand without graphs. So you see that price elasticity of demand obviously is going to be affected by the factors that affect demand, on how sensitive they are to price. So we are saying the availability of substitutes is one of the factors. The greater the number of substitutes and the closer the substitute to each other, the easier it is for also to start using alternative goods. So this is what we have. And also we've got time period. We also have the degree of necessary or luxury of the degree of necessity or luxury of the product. We also have the proportion of income spent on the product. We can talk about brand loyalty and advertising in their explanations. So that's what we have. And then on the next part, we've got a change in the price of habit-forming products such as cigarettes and alcohol. Has a relatively small effect on the quantity demanded. So that's the last part that we have. Moving on, you'd see that this is our 2.4. Then we go 2.5 says, how can the businesses set objectives that make them successful? How can businesses set objectives that makes them successful? You'd see that according to that, now we have our explanation as businesses should set objectives that are specific and understandable So in terms of setting objectives, there should be specific objectives and understandable objectives. Obviously, to the workers that are within that workplace, they should understand the objectives so that they can be able to achieve them. Then we have the next point. They set objectives. The set objectives should be measurable. They should be measurable in order to test whether they have been achieved. So it should be something that we can say after a period of time, we can be able to measure it to see if we have achieved it. So also goals must be acceptable to all stakeholders in the businesses. So there should be goals or objectives that are acceptable by the stakeholders. We talk about the workers as also the internal stakeholders that we have. Then businesses must set realistic objectives that can be achieved. So they should be realistic or achievable. We should not set objectives that can never be achieved. So that's what we have. And also, there must be a time limit on which objectives are set so that progress can be measured. So those are the points that we have about 2.5. And of course, we need to move on to the next question that is going to be our question 3. Moving on to our question 3, which is on microeconomics. Our question has got 40 marks and requires you to spend on average 30 minutes on that question. So the first question reads, name in 2 examples of fixed costs. And we know that the fixed costs do not change with level of output. They remain the same. So what examples can we raise? We can talk about rent as an example. We can talk about insurance as an example of a fixed cost. So we have them named in our answer section, whereby we are saying, we have got insurance, we have rent, we have got interest expense as part of fixed cost. So we move on to the next part of our question, which is now question 3.1.2. Explain the relationship between time period and price elasticity of demand. We are going to see that in the short run, we are going to see that the price elasticity will be inelastic, but as time progresses, we are going to see it becomes sensitive and becomes elastic. So this is again the explanation that we were saying. The longer the time period involved in product changes, the more price elastic is the demand. So basically, that's what we have. Then move on to the next part, which restart the graph below and answer the questions that follow. We've got a graph that we are given here of price elasticity, whereby we've got a curve A, and then we've got vertical axis having price, horizontal axis we've got quantity. So question reads, provide the name of the curve labeled A in the above. So curve labeled A, we are having it as this curve that we have. And we see that it is positively sloped, whereby we are saying as the price increases, quantity, as price increases, we're going to see also quantity increases, indicating a movement in the same direction, which is a positive relationship. So this is depicted by a supply curve. So this is a supply curve. So we go to the next part of our question, whereby it is what type of price elasticity is shown by the graph. We see that when we have got a curve that is vertical, it will be perfectly inelastic. So I would see that this curve is almost vertical, indicating a relatively inelastic curve. So that's the curve that we have, whereby we are saying it is a curve that is relatively inelastic. So we have a 3.2.2 as relatively inelastic. Then the next question is briefly describe the term scarcity, where we're saying scarcity refers to an economic problem of limited resources, but unlimited human wants. So that is a scarcity. So we move on to the next part, which is on 3.2.4, whereby on 3.2.4 is why would a rise in the price of a product have little effect on the quantity of goods offered in the market. So you're going to see that a rise in the price of a product having little effect on the quantity of goods offered in the market. This is usually seen in the agricultural products, whereby I said there are products whose supply cannot be increased in a short run, such as agricultural products. So this is what we have. Then the next question is calculate the percentage change in the price using the information given above. Percentage change in the price, we see that price is moved from 50 to 130. And we know that this becomes our initial price, which we can put as N0, or we can just refer it to as P1. P0, which is moved to P1. So the price is increased from 50 to 130. So the percentage change that we are having there, obviously, we are going to have our P1 minus P0 over P0 times 100 over 1. So obviously, our P1, we are having it as 130. We subtract 50, which is our P0, and then we divide by P0, which is 50, multiplied by 100. So we do that, we're going to see that we're going to get your answer is 160%. This is the same calculation that we have here. Whereby we are saying 130 minus 50, then we get 80, we divide it by 50 times 100 to get 160. So we go to the next part of our question. Next part of our question, we try to see what we have next. Okay, we move on to our 3.3. Start the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So we've got economic loss, whereby we've got cost of revenue on the vertical axis, we've got quantity on the horizontal axis, and then we've got various curves that were given. Our first question says, identify the cost of producing each unit in the above graph. Cost of producing each unit, we see that for producing 50 units, this indicates 50 units. We have got the cost of, we go to the average cost curve, whereby we have got a cost of 30. So average, to get our average 30, we would have said a total cost divided by number of units, which is our number of units. We are given it as 50 in this context. So this will be now indicating the cost per unit. So we have got 30 rand here indicating the cost per unit. So we can just refer there. You see that this is exactly the response that we have, that 30 rand. So then the next question reads, what does the point labeled E represent? So we have point E, we try to see. So at point E, we are seeing that here, that's our point E. And we are seeing that that's when we are having our marginal revenue equal to our marginal cost. And we are really familiarized our marginal cost equal to marginal revenue when we have get a profit maximization point. But when we have got a marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, being below the average cost curve, it represents a loss minimizing point. But when it is above the average cost curve, it becomes a profit maximizing point. So we are saying it's a loss minimizing point, which we are having here. Then the next question is, briefly describe the term economic loss. Economic loss happens when total costs are greater than total revenue, or when average revenue is lower than average cost. So that's the explanation that we have. The next question, why is average and marginal revenue equal on the demand curve? Why is average and marginal revenue equal on the demand curve? Is because each unit sold use the same revenue because they are sold at the same price. So this is the response that we have. Then next, let's calculate the economic loss made by the firm. Show your calculations. So economic loss, we are coming here, we are saying to get the revenue, we are going to use our marginal revenue, 25, and then the cost will be 30. So obviously we are going to say so according to what we have, we are going to say 25 as our cost per, our revenue per unit. We multiply by 50. And then we subtract our costs, which is cost per unit being 30 rand. We multiply by 50. And then from there, we see what we get. So from the calculation, so we see that this is the calculation that we get. So 25 times 50, you get it to 1,250. 30 times 50, you get it to 1,500. Then we subtract the two, you get a negative 250, indicating an economic loss of 250 rands. So basically, that's what we have on that calculation. Then I will distinguish between the different types of objectives in businesses. So we have got the survival as one of the objectives. We've got profit maximizing as one of the also an objective that we have. We also have revenue maximizing. So if sales are maximizing with the explanations given. So next question, how does the entry of new firms in a perfect market affect the whole market? So obviously, when we have entry of new firms, remember in a perfect market, we have got no barriers to entry. Any firm that one needs to operate in that market can enter. So entry of new firms will make firms more in that market structure, which means supply is going to increase. When supply increases, we see that the price will decrease. It's going to lead to a decrease in price, and also you're going to see that the profits that were being made by existing firms there is also going to go down. I remember if they were any abnormal profits, guys, they're going to be wiped away and then they become normal. So basically, this is the scenario that we have in that case. So new firms increase the number of competition in the market and cause an increase in supply, which is quite clear. And then the price levels of goods and services would decrease as a result of high supply. All firms in the market would start earning lower profits than previously, which is also correct. Firms would continue to increase production until some businesses cannot cover their average variable costs anymore. So these are some of the points that we can include there. So this is enough on our question 3. So we try to move on to the next question that we have. So on our question 5, it's a question whereby it's on microeconomics. So our first part of our question 5 is discuss in detail the demand and supply relationships with the aid of graphs. And also on the additional part, so this is going to be our additional part whereby it is how relative price is used in the economy in 10 months. So the first part with 26 months. So of course, this is our essay. So we're supposed to start with our introduction. So these are the requirements in terms of our introduction, whereby the introduction is a lower order response. A good starting point would be to define the main concept related to the question topic. Do not include any part of the question in your introduction. So that's very important. Take note. Do not repeat any part of the introduction in the body. Very important. Avoid mentioning in the introduction what you are going to discuss in the body. So very important to take note of those points. So going back to our question, we are going to start with the introduction that we have within the context of this question. So this is a typical introduction that we can come up with, whereby we have the issue of a demand being described, whereby there is a demand relationship occurs when two or more goods and services are demanded at the same time, due to the fact that they can be used together. So obviously, with the description that we have, you can see that this is going to include the substitutes and the complements. So in the main body, remember our main body requires us to look at discuss in detail the demand and supply relationship with the aid of diagrams. So we are saying the relationship that we have got substitutes and complements. So we can start with substitutes, whereby a substitute we are saying is a product that can be used in place of another product. So those are substitutes. So some products have specific relationships that will affect the demand. So within that context, we are given two graphs that we have. We have got beef and pork being substitutes. So we are saying instead of beef, you can use a pork. So those are substitutes. So we are having two graphs that we have, a graph of beef and graph of pork, whereby we have got a demand being held constant in terms of the first graph under beef, and then in the second graph we have got supply being held constant, which means supply is not changing and demand is not changing in the first graph. So beneath that, now we are given a scenario whereby we have a change in price. We have got a movement of price that we are having there from 80. It is going to be a movement from 80 to 100. In this particular point, when a price increases from 80 to 100, we're going to see a demand also falling from 40 to 20. So this is the scenario that we are given. So with that now, this is what is explained under price of beef. Remember, the first graph is on price of beef. So it's saying the price of beef increases from 80 to 100, which is this movement that we have here, due to a decrease in the supply. Decrease in supply, which is supply curve shifts from SS to S1. So we see that we have got a supply curve that has shifted. Remember, when a supply curve shifts upwards, it indicates a decrease in supply, or supply is contracting. So we have an upward shift that we have there, that is indicating that supply has decreased, and the decrease in supply has led to an increase in price from 80 to 100. So leading to a decrease in quantity, from quantity supplied from 40 to 20. So basically that's so that effect that we have on beef is going to have a cascading effect to the demand for pork. So when we have an increase in price of beef, it means pork becomes cheaper. So when pork becomes cheaper, it's going to shift the demand curve of pork from D to D1. So more is going to be demanded of pork because it becomes cheaper than the beef. So in that case now, due to the increase in demand, it's also going to have a ripple effect whereby we are saying when the demand increases from D1 to D1 to D to D1, it's also going to push the price upwards due to demand pull. The demand pull is going to lead for an increase of price from 50 going upwards. So basically, that's the relationship that is going to be there between the two substitutes that we have there. So under the explanation of demand for pork, we are saying demand for the substitute good, which is the pork, increases from D to D1. So this is the increase that we have from D to D1. And then from there, because of the increase in demand, price also increases from 50 to 70. So you're going to see that price also will increase from 50 to 70 here. Due to the increase in demand, which has shifted the equilibrium point from this point to this point, which is a shift of the price from 50 to 70. So basically, that's what we have on that. This implies that an increase in price of one product will cause an increase in demand of substitute product. So that's the explanation on substitutes. Then we go to complements. Complement, we are saying these are goods that can be used at the same time. So we are saying products are complementary products when they are used together to satisfy a need or a want. So we have got tea and milk that are used at the same time as a complementary. So you've got the first graph of price of tea and then demand for milk. So within that context, we see that in the first graph, we have got the demand being held constant, not changing, and then supply is constant in the second graph. So explanation of the graph, price of tea, we are seeing that the price of tea increases due to a decrease in supply. So we are seeing that we are having, under T, we are having the supply shifting from S to S1. So when the supply shifts from S to S1, it's going to increase the price from 20 to 30, 20 rand to 30 rand. So that's what we have in terms of effect on T. And then the quantity demanded for T decreases from Q to Q1. So we have got a decrease in quantity from this point to 20. So that's what we have. And then what is going to affect the demand for milk now? So when we have the price increasing, of tea, it means it's now more expensive to drink tea. So at the same time, milk cannot be demanded, since milk also should be demanded at the same time with the tea. So if it becomes expensive for tea, it's going to affect demand for milk. It's going to be less demanded also. You see that the demand curve will also go down from D to D1. So this is the shift that we are seeing here. And then when we have that shift now, we are going to see that the equilibrium point will also move from this point to this point. So we are also going to see the movement in price that we see on the vertical axis. So explanation on demand for milk, we are saying the increase in price of tea will cause a decrease in demand for milk, and people will buy less tea, therefore they will need less milk. This causes the demand curve D to shift to leftward to D1, and quantity demanded decreases from 30 to 20, and price will decrease from 60 to 50. So see that price will decrease from 60 to 50. So this is the scenario that we have. So in that case now, we see that this is what we have in terms of effects on the complementary. So we have got a conclusion that we have said, which is that for complementary goods, when the price of one good increases, the demand for the complementary product will decrease. If the price of one product decreases, the demand for the complementary products will increase. So this is typically the relationship that we have on complementary goods. So of course, we are left with the additional part, whereby on the additional part it reads how relative price is used in the economy. How are relative prices used in the economy? So relative prices are used by consumers and producers when making decisions about their spending and production. And then also policymakers use prices to describe all the appropriate measures to implement in managing the economy. So these are the points that we are supposed to include under the additional part. And then I will look at the conclusion this is a typical conclusion that we can come up with, which reads it is very important for firms to understand the nature of their products and its market and how it is influenced by the factor market. So this is the last question that we have according to our essay part. And thank you for listening, and let's meet again in the next video.